Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hang out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
And in this GM 911, we address, if your characters have the keys to the kingdoms, can they still go out adventuring?
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Alright, so we had a GM 911 come in, which if you have a GM 911, you can send it to nerdarchy@gmail.com and put GM 911 in the subject line. This particular GM 911, though, will be in the description so you guys can follow along and check it out.
Alright, so this is coming from Ethan, and there's a lot of backstory going on in this one, but ultimately, PC is a king, and he wants to also go adventuring, and Ethan wants to know, how do you let that happen? King's got all these roles, all these duties, all these things that they need to be able to do. How can they go off gallivanting and running around in, tombs and, strange places, risking his life?
There's different versions of he's the king, right? There's Aragorn, Strider, technically king, right? I forget the name of the character, but in the series that we reference a lot is Last of the Renshai. There's a character that turns out to be a king in there, but he's not ruling anything right now. Mm-hmm. And you would never guess that he was the king from the way they describe him through most of the series. So there's king in exile, there's king in hiding, there's those ways of doing it. But then there's also, or king in waiting possibly, but then there's also, look at Icewind Dale trilogy, right? Brunard leads the clan. He's the king. He's the king, and then he's the king of Mithril Hall. And then I don't know if he gets the other one, becomes king of that too. He's like king of all these different places that he's running, but he still wants to, he gets wanderlust. He wants to go out. He wants to adventure. So it takes some preparation because he's got to deal with that too, and he's got to have someone in charge. And he kind of sneaks off, and then he's got Fwent who won't let him go by himself, and insists on being there to protect him and guard him.
Thibodeau Fwent, love him. So hilarious. But so there's a number of different ways, and clearly there's precedence to allowing this to happen. If you get into all these different novel series and things, technically, if you want to look at my game, The Curse of Narcitus, Ryan's character was elected mayor and is now Lord Lyndon Hemsworthy after the annex from the Kingdom of Dralic. So he goes off adventuring, and he has that nice out whenever Ryan can't make the session of, oh, well, I have to stay here, and I have to mayor. I have to do these lordly things.
Although it would be great if there's, another session comes up where there's another election, and, his opponent is he's a horrible mayor, he's never even here, he's all gallivanting.
And if Ted were really into politics, I think that would be spectacular. But I already did the election thing, and to revisit that might be too much politics for Ted.
Maybe. But, if the campaign goes, sorry, guys, I cannot go to hell with you and try and defeat Narcitus. I have to stay here and mayor.
So, all right, so how do we have a ruler? Let's take the term king out of the picture. How do we have someone who's in charge of a populace be able to go off and adventure?
Well, for one, you're the king, and you can kind of do what you want to a certain extent, as long as you have competent people to leave behind. But I would also say this should lead to other adventures and other scenarios where your kingship might come into question, and there might be an uprising either from the common folk or even from aristocrats and nobles going, well, you're not a good king because you're not here, you're not taking care of things. There could be wars declared. There could be a lot of role-playing stuff going on. Definitely, almost every time he leaves, there should be some kind of role-playing encounter that's kind of based around that character, where someone is like, no, you really need to stay here. Someone has to go sit in the seat and take care of the thing and do the stuff. Those kind of angles that you're going to have to bring up and kind of visit throughout the campaign.
So those are spectacular points. In my game, we're lucky enough that we've got things set up that there's the ruling council, and it's set up because there was a bad mayor previously. So
you're welcome, Ted.
Thank you. So it was designed to be this little counterbalance, and it then frees up Lyndon to be able to say, well, we already have something in place when I'm not here. So it didn't take any extra work. We can just move on and have this thing happen. So if the king says, well, I'm going to set up this set of ruling body to do things while I'm gone, problem solved. On the other side of it, adventuring almost always proves more valuable economically than whatever a wealthy person could do that's not adventuring. You know, Nate's character in my game is a merchant, and he comes from a wealthy, noble family that makes a decent amount of money. And anytime he misses, it's like, oh, I made 300 gold this session. Oh, you guys made 2,000. What the flip?
Yeah, it doesn't pay to stay home and run the business. Even Lyndon kind of like figured that out early on, because he was running a tailor shop, and he became mayor. And all in all, you make so much more money going out slaying the dragon.
Absolutely. So, like, if you wanted to take a portion of your profits from adventuring and say, well, I'm going to sink this back into the kingdom as an incentive to whoever is giving you guff about you doing this, it's going to improve the kingdom overall. If you're sinking all of this money back into the whole thing. And, you know, you could have, oh, well, let's institute one of the other player characters as a bodyguard, just like, you know, Thibbledorf does to Brunar. And that then ties these characters together, adding for more role-playing things. You know, you could make scenarios where it's like, no, king, you can't do that, and have somebody leap in front of them to, you know, I'm going to take the dodge action and, you know, try to, you know, save them from attacks. Like, you could have all kinds of fun, cool role-playing moments.
Build up that heroic angst.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's all that. And I do like the idea of, you know, the king actually taking a portion of his earnings. One, it siphons off how much gold that individual character has, and giving it back to the coffers of the kingdom. So, like, he, like, proves, oh, no, like, this is a valuable resource to the kingdom when I go out and do this. You know, like you said, you also put in like a parliament, or, you know, some kind of council that runs things, which, you know, again, it could help and be useful, but at the same time, could be a contention later on if they're like, well, what do we really need a king for? Or if they're constantly, you know, doing things to lessen the power of the king, especially when he's not there to protect his interests, or, you know, the king just becomes an honorary title and it doesn't really mean anything anymore.
So from that angle, you could really play up the politics of it, and you could create scenarios that's like, oh, well, you know, are the people that have been put in charge when you're gone not as trustworthy as you thought? You know, do you have to go through some of that rigmarole while you're out of town? You could be making, you know, mercantile contacts, things to better improve your city. You know, oh, well, hey, you're a fabulous artist, smith, whatever, you know, why don't you go back to my place? I'll pay you this and that. And now we've got a better insert whatever guild. Along the same lines, if you're out adventuring, you're probably dealing with threats to the realm. You're dealing with, you know, baddies. So you're, in essence, improving the quality of life of everyone by reducing the threat level to the inhabiting area.
Yeah, I think at this point it's important to start introducing storylines and adventures that aren't so much like your dungeon delving in your typical D&D game, where you're addressing politics on the local level, you know, infighting, also across boundaries, and possibly even adding wars. You know, because you've been going away, you had to institute a council. What happens if doppelgangers start replacing all your council members? You could definitely do things like that. You can, you know, along with the politics, you can also do, you know, elements of espionage and spycraft into your game. So you can really start telling different kinds of stories if your group is interested in that. Or, you know, you can just, you know, he's going to leave and come back, and it depends on how much you actually care too, right? If you don't really care that it doesn't really make sense for the king to go out adventuring and have a kingdom, but it makes the player happy, and for you want to have them in charge, then you can be like, whatever, and not even think about it. It probably wouldn't detract from your game at all. You only need to add those elements if you're interested in it, or your player is interested, or you both are to some degree or another.
Yeah, so as Dave says, you could totally wrap this all up in a package and say, nobody cares. He's a king. He's going to go off an adventure, and you don't touch any of it. Or you can add any amounts of the layers or all of the layers into your game and really dive deep into this, you know, long chasm of craziness, because let's face it, it's all possible.
Question is, what do you guys do in your games? Do you have your players take over and rule stuff? Is it out of the question? I don't know. You let us know down in the comments below. While you're at it, Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can read the articles over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.